Welcome back to our video series about helping our children with technology. My name is Neil Fagan. I'm the headmaster at Northridge Preparatory School, and this is the fourth and the final video in this series. And in this one, I'll discuss an approach that you can use in your home. And this entire video series, plus a handout which I think is very helpful, has a lot of practical suggestions, including all the ones we're going to go through in this video. You can find all of these things online at northridgeprep.org/technology. In this video, what I'd like to do is talk about an approach that you can implement in your home. Now, I don't think there's one right way. What's important is that you really think it through and implement it the way you see best. I would never say that the way I'm suggesting is the only way, but hopefully you find it helpful. And so I'm going to recommend what I think is a good approach, and then obviously you discuss and do what you like. I think the first thing is that parents must agree on approach. It's obvious, but it's very important that the two of you, husband and wife, have good conversations and hash out disagreements. And there usually are disagreements, and that's okay, but hash them out in a good discussion, not just one person going off and giving a child a smartphone or one just taking it away. Obviously, it's very important that the two of you are united on this topic. And the things to agree on, I've listed here on this slide. First is the why. Why does our family have the approach that it has? And in the handout that I referenced, we list a number of suggestions that you might consider for this why. And then obviously, a very important topic is when to give a smartphone, but also social media and so forth. That's a very important topic to discuss. And then the third one is rather obvious, is rules. Rules around time, place, duration. It's obvious to say this, but it is very important that the two of you sit down and have a conversation, probably multiple, on this topic. And one thing I'd like to point out here is that as I've worked with families on this topic, I've come to realize that dads really play a crucial role here. And why is that? Well, over time, as children get older, it's just what we see is that they tend to look to dad more for the authority figure. It's not that mom doesn't have authority, but there's something about this area in particular where the dad is crucial. And I think the reason is because men have this vocation to protect. It's how we're built. We're designed that way to protect. And so much of the reasons that we have to be careful around technology is protecting our family and our children from unwarranted negative influences that come through that technology. And I think it's this protector role that men have in particular, that dads have in particular, why dad is so crucial. And it's just what I've seen. It's just been my experience that families where this goes very well, the dad is often the bulwark, the authority figure saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and not just saying, but explaining it, taking the child aside and having those good conversations. And it's not that the mom doesn't play a crucial role here too, but this is just more a call for dads to really understand that you do play a primary role, I think, in this area of technology. What are some rules for the house? These are suggestions. They're all available in the handout. The first one is, I would suggest no phones in the evening. Studies show that teens look at their phone, if they take it to bed with them, 6 times between the time they go to get in bed and the time they wake up. 6 times between the time they get in bed and the time they leave the bed. That's horrible for sleep. It's not just that. It's a distraction while studying. It's access to pornography and everything that you don't want through the internet. So no phones in the evening, especially no phones in the bedroom. And typically what families I've seen successful with this, they'll have a common charging station where even the parents will set an example and put their phones in that charging station. I've started to do this myself. It helps you sleep a lot. I think it's good for everybody. No phones in the evening, especially not in the bedroom. Next one, no phones at the table. It's a common sense, but I think it's very important. And studies show that even if phones are off to the side, barely in sight, it actually really affects the impact, the quality of that conversation. So we want phones off, just not at the table at all. How much screen time do you allow during the day? And I would suggest this is total screen time, outside of work on the laptop for homework, obviously. And studies show that up to 1 hour a day doesn't seem to have much of an impact. And that's total screen time, games, etc. So agree on rules for how much screen time you will let your children have. And then the last one is, where are your computers? I would recommend that your children do not have laptops, computers in their bedrooms. Now this might be hard, but typically when do boys or any teen fall into trouble? It's when they're lonely, they're feeling bored, or feeling depressed. And what teen does not go through that on a rather regular basis? that's when it gets in trouble. So I would recommend you don't have computers in the bedroom. That computers are all in a common area where other people can walk by and see what's going on. It's just a natural safety device that offices use. We'd use it here at Northridge. It's just good best practice. There are more suggestions, and I just would point you to the attachment. So now what I'd like to do is talk about the setup of the home. And this is not just of the smartphone, or that for sure, but also of filtering and so forth. And there is some work required here. There's no way around it. But I think the point is that, hey, if we're introducing technology into our families, it's worth the effort to set them up appropriately to protect our children. And there's 4 areas that we'll go through. And I'm going to go through them at a relatively high level. But what I'd like to do is suggest that you watch the video of Rob Donikowski. He came and spoke at Northridge, and he went through these 4 areas in much more detail that I think you'll find very helpful. He's much more knowledgeable in these areas than I am, so I'd point you to that, but I'll walk us through the high-level approach, and then if you care, you can watch his video for details, or you can look at our attachment, which also explains all the details. So now let's switch to the 4 areas. In the typical home, within the home, there's internet. And within that home, you have smart TVs, you might have games. And so we need an approach for this ecosystem in your home. But in addition, there's any smartphones that your child might have, if you've chosen to give him that. That needs, obviously, some filters and controls. But not just that, there's also all the stuff that goes on in the cloud. And that's social media, if you've chosen to allow him to have access to that. But not just social media, it's also text and email. So we need an approach that helps him use technology well in all these areas, at home, on his phone, and on the cloud. So what are the 4 areas? The first one would be internet filters and device time limits at home. And we'll go through a tool that we recommend to do that. The second thing is parental controls. That each of the devices that you have at home and also the phone have the parental controls turned on. And this is very important. You might think, hey, internet filter at home is enough, but it's not. One of the biggest ways boys access porn is actually through Xbox. So in addition to filters, you need parental controls on the devices. The third area we'd recommend is monitoring of the activity of your child online. Monitoring his text, his email, and so forth, and we'll go through that. And then the last thing is the device itself needs, in addition to parental controls, usually some kind of filtering and monitoring device for the activity on the device. These are the 4 areas, and now what I'd like to do is kind of walk through the tools we'd recommend. So for the home, we'd recommend the particular device, Netgear, with the Disney Circle software embedded in it. And all of this you can find out on our attachment. What this does is that it filters the home internet. It does a very nice job doing that. And it also sets device time limits for like the Xbox and whatever else you have in your home. So Netgear and Circle is great for the home internet filtering and time limits at home. Parental controls are not easy often to set up. There's a great website that walks you through just about every single device, phone, etc. that's out there. It's called protectyoungeyes.com. It's, I think, the best website out there for helping families navigate technology. So I'd recommend it. Go to protectyoungeyes.com and it will tell you how to turn on and set up the parental devices for your Xbox and also for the phone. Okay, the third thing, monitoring, bark.us. It's the best out there. It's really the only one that does a good job. What they do, it's very useful. They plug into your child's social media account if he has it, also his email, also his texts if he has an Android or an iPhone. And rather than you having to then go read all of his posts, which frankly most parents don't have the time to do and just don't do, it does all that for you using artificial intelligence, and then it just sends you alerts if it finds something that it might think you want to know about. And it could be mood disorders, sexual comments, violence, whatever. Bark only alerts you to the things that it finds problematic and does a really good job of that. So I'd recommend Bark. It's not that hard to set up. And the last thing is the phone itself. The phone, it has a browser. It has a lot of other ways to access online and social in addition to these things in the cloud. So you need some kind of device on the phone itself that monitors it, that sets the filters, and that sets screen time on the phone. The one we'd recommend is covenanteyes.com. There's another one called custodio.com. Either one's very good, and it sets up the filters and screen time. So that's the overall approach. 4 things: Netgear and Circle, then parental controls turned on, use Protect on Your Eyes to guide you through that. Third, use Bark. And then fourth, on the phone, if he has a smartphone or she has a smartphone, Covenant Eyes, or there's another one, Custodio. So that's a high level. All of this is explained in more detail in our handout, which you can find at northridgeprep.org/technology. And I'd also encourage you to watch the video by Rob Donikowski, where he walks through how he implemented those 4 tools in his family. And I think you'll find a lot of helpful tips. This is the end of the videos, and I want to thank you for watching them. This topic is very important, and I appreciate you spending the time listening to my thoughts on this, and hopefully you find something that's helpful. And I'd just like to close with this thought, that this, I know, requires going against the grain. My hope is that someday society realizes the impact that this technology is having on our children and agrees on a common approach towards it, but right now that's certainly not the case. Implementing the steps that I've recommended is going to require going against the grain and possibly some disagreements with your children that could be unpleasant in the moment. But I've had numerous families actually share that, hey, they didn't give their child social media, and he argued, he complained, but by the time he was 18 and going off to college, he thanked them. I've heard this a number of times. I think it is worth the effort. And if we want our children to grow up to become the competent, responsible, professionally capable young men and women that we want for them, to be great spouses and great parents, I think we need to do this. And it's important for our children and also for our community as a school. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you found something helpful, and please do check out the website for the practical implementation steps that I think you'll find a real help. Thank you very much.